Now I want you to ask yourself, do you have that special whitetail parcel that a mature buck gravitates to during the daylight hours during the hunting season? Now, of course, it's not all about mature bucks, but mature bucks are a sign of a healthy parcel. If you do not have that daylight attraction of mature bucks, then how could you potentially mold a herd, work on sex ratios, work on adequate buck age structure, and actually maintain populations in balance with the habitat on your land? Very few whitetail parcels are part of the 5% club. And I want you to be part of the 5% club. And what I mean by that is very few, to me less than 5% that I've experienced actually hold the daylight attention of mature bucks. Let's face it, mature bucks for the majority of the season in the majority of locations move less than 200 to 300 yards during the daylight hours all season long. We really don't care where they're at night. In fact, we don't want them on our land at night because I don't want them or the does and fawns that come with them to actually diminish the amount of food and the amount of cover and the amount of daytime browse, my resources during the nighttime hours when they're just camping out all night. I'd rather that they're on my property during the daylight, they're hitting my food sources, and then they're off the land. Very few parcels are daylight mature buck parcels that hold that daylight focus. And I'm talking even 40 acres, 30 acres, 100 acres, 200, 500 acres. For one, the amount of pressure that folks put on the land, over hunting food plots, might be driving an ATV on the land, accessing poorly to stand locations, using noisy stands, all those things that diminish your ability to access the land as a predator. So if you have all those things working, you can take a 40-acre parcel, and we did this on Onyx maps for another video, but you can take a 40-acre parcel in the middle of a lot of parcels that are larger, and you can start Xing out those properties that overhunting pressure, overhunting food plots, poor access, loud stand locations, generally spooking deer over and over again. That's the majority of whitetail parcels. And those mature bucks, if you do it right, if you work on your fall habitat, your fall food, and the reclusiveness of the areas, depth of cover that you can actually hold a mature buck, it's amazing how very few parcels are left over for a mature buck to call home during the daylight, during hunting season. It can take place on 30 acres or less. It can take place on a 40. I talked about what's the perfect hunting parcel size. Well, you don't need much when you're the only one in the neighborhood actually practicing quality fall cover, fall food, herd manipulation, and actually molding that herd for a quality herd that ultimately, after all this stuff is done, produces a quality hunt. Are you a 5% whitetail parcel? Do you own that 5% whitetail parcel? You can. It just takes a lot of those steps to happen first. And I've done this with my kids hunting, with my wife hunting, less experienced hunters hunting, so that we can actually, if you manage the stand locations, the access, the wind direction for those stands, if you're accessing well, if you have defined movements on your parcel, then you can create a property that not only sucks one mature buck into during the daylight hours, but several. I find if one is killed, a lot of times another one slots in, especially on these small parcels, because their other option during the daylight hours is to expose themselves to hunting pressure. The older they become, and it doesn't matter if your top end bucks in your area are 3 years old or if they're 7 years old, those top end bucks crave low hunting pressure, quality fall food, and cover. Then you have to give them that depth off to the side, that true sanctuary that represents at least 60 to 70% of your land, including all food plots, all bedding areas, all timber stand improvement, all water holes, all mock scrapes. They should all be a part of that, those efficient acres where deer can't see you, hear you, or smell you. And I'm telling you, it is amazing when you become a 5% parcel. And I'll give you another example, Lower Michigan, where I grew up, traveling to Troy, Rochester, Clarkston, Waterford, down into Jackson, Lansing, over into Ann Arbor, Saline, wherever it might be. There's a lot of little areas that are 20 acres of cover sandwiched in between homes, houses, lots of mature bucks down there. I know some people that have quite the collection of mature bucks in those areas. Very easy to hunt, those areas. Doesn't take much scent control, noise control, anything. You can just about do what you want. But it's very, very hard to get permission in those areas. And the bottom line, those deer are in those pockets a lot of times because there's zero hunting pressure. Not that there's even any food plots, water holes, any kind of timber management or bedding areas created. It is amazing, those properties that literally have no habitat improvements created, but hold several mature bucks on them simply because there's no hunting pressure. That's a common theme surrounding any urban, suburban areas. Those areas are easy to hunt because deer are used to people. Just because there's more people doesn't mean that it's a harder land to hunt. It just, or that there's more hunting pressure. It just all boils down to those small micro parcels that hold great deer. And those deer only move 200 to 300 yards during the daylight again in most areas. So it doesn't take much to hold the attention of not only one mature buck during the hunting season, but several. And I'll leave you with a closing thought. A lot of my clients, I've heard this question asked many times before to me, is what my expectations are for their land and their habitat improvements versus their own. And what's interesting about that is my expectations are much higher than they could ever imagine because they've largely never experienced the benefits of a 5% parcel and being that one parcel in the area that actually holds the attention of mature bucks. And when you look at that small 40-acre parcel and you look at all the acres around it where people are overhunting again, they're overhunting their food plots, they're pressuring the deer, they're spooking deer, they're driving in ATVs on the land, they're giving the deer 0 acres that they can feel comfortable every single day, then you can quickly X off so many parcels around a small parcel and really look at that small parcel as the herd influencer in the entire area. And I have high expectations. I have high expectations for you. You can become that 5% parcel. I urge you to make sure that you subscribe for these videos. Subscribe to these videos. They're not quite daily, but we do have several coming out every week. I hope to hit 180 to 200 this year, and we are on track for that. And when you become the 5% parcel, your ability to not only hunt a great herd, but actually mold a herd, attract a herd, shape a herd with good biological principles becomes at the peak of potential whitetail habitat management. And that is my wish and my goal for you and for all this content that I put on this channel. I want you to become a true 5% whitetail habitat landowner and hunter this fall.